I watched her pack my grandmother's china as if it already belonged to her. That was the instant I understood exactly how this story would end. "You need to be out by Friday," she told me, not even bothering to meet my eyes. My stepmother, the woman who spent 3 years pretending to be a heartbroken widow while quietly removing every trace of me from my father's home. My home, the one he'd willed to me before she somehow managed to get that will overturned. 6 months of legal bills I had no way of paying. 6 months of going up against her attorney, the attorney funded by my father's own estate, burying me under endless paperwork. And when the judge finally sided with her, pointing to some loophole about marital property rights, she didn't even look satisfied, just gave a small nod, like it was the outcome she'd expected all along. "Friday," she repeated. "And don't take anything that doesn't belong to you." Everything belonged to me. Dad had promised me this house when I was 12, sitting beside me on the porch while he showed me how to clean out the gutters. But promises made by dead men don't stand up in court when you're 26 and your stepmother married him 2 years before he passed. I left on Thursday, taking only what I brought into the house. Let her enjoy her empty victory. She thought she'd won. I met her at Dad's 62nd birthday party, charming, thoughtful, attentive. She laughed at his jokes, brought him water when he coughed. I remember thinking, finally, someone who really sees him. Dad had been lonely after Mom died. I just wanted him to have companionship again. The wedding was small. I stood beside him, genuinely believing this could be good for us. That first year, she fit the part perfectly, called me for advice on his favorite dinners, invited me over on Sundays. I truly thought I was gaining family. Then Dad got sick. Suddenly, I needed an appointment just to visit. My calls disappeared into voicemail. If I showed up unannounced, she greeted me at the door with some excuse about him being too exhausted. I'd hear him coughing inside, calling for me, and she'd edge the door shut a little more. Maybe next week. But next week never came. I learned he died from a Facebook post. His funeral was planned, held, and completed before I even knew he was gone. She insisted she'd called. My phone records proved she hadn't. I sat alone in my apartment staring at his obituary, feeling something inside me harden into stone. The reading of the will was worse. She sat across from me dabbing her eyes, performing grief. Dad's lawyer, now representing her, explained that the house, the savings, the life insurance, everything would stay with her as the surviving spouse. But he promised, I started. Verbal agreements aren't legally binding, the lawyer cut in. She sniffled, pretending sympathy. I'm sure he wanted to take care of both of us. Liar. I didn't fight her then. I nodded, thanked the lawyer, and walked out quietly. That night, I went through every piece of paperwork Dad had ever shared with me, bank statements he'd asked me to review, property documents he'd shown me when talking about his estate, tax forms. And that's when I found it. The house was purchased in 1987, 8 years before he married my mother. Title solely in his name. Never refinanced. Never shared ownership. And according to county records, the property taxes, about $8,000 a year, were automated from an account that closed when he died. His personal account, not a joint one. I checked the county assessor's site. Last payment was in March, 4 months before he passed. Nothing since. She had no clue. I waited 6 months after she forced me out. Let her get comfortable, redecorate, host her book club in my living room. I watched her Instagram stories. She transformed the house into something out of a magazine, posting aesthetic shots of morning coffee on the porch where Dad taught me about gutters. The county sends multiple warnings before foreclosing. 3 notices spaced 90 days apart. I knew because I'd studied every corner of Texas property tax law. The first notice would have shown up 2 months after she kicked me out. The second another 2 months later. She likely ignored both, figured they were spam, mistakes, or somehow my responsibility. The third letter is the final notice. I drove by on auction day. She was on the lawn screaming at a county employee, yelling about mistakes, about fraud, about how she owned the property. "Ma'am, the taxes haven't been paid in 18 months. That's impossible." I didn't stop, just slowed down enough to catch the moment she realized the house she'd stolen had never actually been hers. She'd been living rent-free in a ticking bomb. And I allowed her to forget it was set to explode. The county sold it for $60,000, the precise amount of back taxes, penalties, and fees. I bought it through an LLC. Same-day wire transfer. She still calls sometimes. Blocked number, but I recognize the breathing. She wants to know how I discovered it, how I planned it, how I came out on top. I never pick up. Some lessons land best in silence. Dad taught me that too, on the porch, changing gutters, promising me a home. And I kept his promise.